Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome to our very first lesson of math. Mom and Dad, I want to give you just a couple tips to hopefully make this a little more successful for you as we move along. There will be some things we refer to in our math series that may be a little confusing for you. There was a student resources book that came home, and it gives a lot of the terminology and definitions that we use in the math series, and one in particular in this chapter, in chapter 1, we use what the kids will call counters. So those are not what we have in our kitchen that we put all of our items on. Those are actually round discs. In the classroom, they're two-sided. They're red and yellow round discs. I think for what we sent home, I know for my particular class, I sent home just some paper bingo markers so that if they were lost, we would still have our counters here in the classroom. So if we're looking at our math workbook today, we are going to be on lesson 1.1. So boys and girls, if you look at your paper, down in the bottom corner, you'll actually see the page number. So today's page number is page 13. Mom and Dad, another helpful hint for this lesson and all lessons is to, at the bottom of each page, the directions are written explicitly and they are much easier to understand if you kind of read through those before you help your child with this lesson. But boys and girls, we're going to start today with learning about some numbers. We're going to start really simple, and I know most of you probably already know these, but we do have to start at the very beginning so we build upon our basic knowledge. And what we see here today is some crayons. And we're going to count those crayons, and we're going to use counters. So when you do this actual math lesson, you guys will be placing the counters in these boxes, and this is called a 5 frame. And we call it a 5 frame because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 5 boxes in it. Now, how many purple crayons do you see? 1. You see 1 purple crayon. So I want you to take 1 marker and put it in the first box. Here at school, we don't have counters that will stick on our smartboard, but we have these special markers that we can draw with, and actually you are welcome to draw as well. But you should have placed 1 counter into that box, and then you're welcome to take that 1 counter off and you can draw 1 counter on there. So it's just a circle, a round circle, and you can leave it blank or you can color it in, whatever you would like. If we move down to the next 5 frame, there are some orange crayons. Do you see those? How many orange crayons do you see? I see 1, 2. I see 2 orange crayons. So you can take 2 counters and put them in your 5 frame. When we start, we don't want to put 1 at the end and 1 in the middle. We're going to start on the left. So we'll put 1 counter in the first box and 1 counter in the second box. And again, if you want to color those in, you can, or you can just leave them the round circles that they are. All right? I am going to erase my counters. You are not. You're going to leave yours on your paper. But I'm going to go ahead and erase my counters, and we are going to turn to the next page. So yours would be on the back of the first page. Okay? So now if we look at the bottom, we're on page 14. So again, we're going to look at counting just in this chapter, numbers 1 and 2. And moms and dads, if we look at the directions at the bottom, it says, place a counter on each object in the set as you count them. Tell how many counters, trace the numbers, move the counters to the 5 frame, and then draw the counters. So, boys and girls, we're going to find number 1. It's inside of an apple here. Do you see that? So you'll take the 1. Oh, and there's the word 1 for those of you that are looking. O-N-E, 1. And I can trace my number 1. It starts at the top and goes straight down to the bottom. I have a notebook. That's a school supply we would use. It has 1, just 1 notebook. So I'm going to draw one counter in my, what's that called again? Do you remember? It's called a 5 frame, remember? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called a 5 frame. So you will draw one circle, and again, if you want to color it in, you can, or you don't have to. It's up to you. If we move down to the bottom half, that's just a divider. We see the number 2 inside of a sun. I see how many tape dispensers? 2. 1, 2. Very good. To start to draw a number 2, you start at that blue dot and you're going to try and trace on that line all the way around and slide back. And there's the number 2. T-W-O. 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to draw. Do you know how many counters I'm going to draw? If you said 2, you are correct. So 1, 2. There you go. You can color those in if you'd like. Good job, boys and girls. If I am moving too fast, Mom and Dad, you can always pause the video and then restart it when your child is ready to go on again. So for Miss Vogel's on the smartboard, I have to erase mine before I can move on to the next page. And let's look over on your right now to page number. Do you see at the bottom? Do you know what that number is? With a 1 and a 5, do you know? 15, that's 15. Now, oh my goodness, we have all kinds of 5 frames here. I see the number, what is that? 1, and then the number 2, 1, and 2. So on each of these 5 frames, I'm going to pick a different color this time. And boys and girls, when you're tracing, we hope that you're able to use a pencil. In case you make a mistake, you can erase it. But if you wanted to use crayons to draw your counters, you're more than welcome to. But for number 1, I'm going to start at the top and pull straight down to the bottom line. And there's that word, O-N-E, which spells the number 1. And in my 5 frame, I'm going to draw one counter. And I'm going to start on the left. Remember, we don't want to jump any boxes. We're always going to start on the left. Now we're down to number 4, and this is number 2. Put your pencil on the blue dot. Curve up and around, slant down, and slide back. 2. So I need to put 2 counters in my box. 1, 2. Very good. Let's move down to number 5. What number is that? If you said number 1, you are super smart. Way to go. Go ahead and put 1 counter in that first box. And number 6, it is the number, what is that one? It's a 2. So go ahead and put your pencil on that dot, trace around, curve around, stop, and slide straight back. T-W-O, 2. And how many counters will we put in those boxes? If you said 2, you are correct. 1, 2. And all the rest of those boxes should be empty. Now let me show you what happens, boys and girls. If I don't erase my board and I turn to the next page, you could see all the writing that I did before. So I can still erase it on this page. You won't erase it on your page. Ms. Vogel just has to do it on my page because it's a smart board. All right, on our very last page, moms and dads, if you take a peek, directions become a little bit more lengthy as you get to the back page. And it's a little more thinking, a little more mental math. And so kids will need to draw out the pictures or help them draw out what you're actually communicating to them. So for number 7, we have 7 and 8 and 9. For number 7, I spy some lunch boxes. I see a blue lunchbox and 2 red lunchboxes. So Jen, there's a little girl in the class named Jen. She has 2 matching lunchboxes. And the little boy Max has 1 lunchbox. I want you to circle to show me which one are Jen's. So remember, I said Jen has 2 matching lunchboxes. Can you figure out which ones are Jen's? It is the red ones because there are 2. So we would circle the group or the set of 2. There is a set of 2 lunchboxes. Okay? Now let's go down to number 8. It's an empty box, so Mom and Dad will have to make sure we double check and we read through those directions. Number 8 is draw to show what you know about the number 1. Well, let's think. Do we know what the number looks like? I remember we started at the top and we drew straight down to make a number 1, didn't we? Do we know how many counters we use to represent the number 1? We would just use 1 counter, and you're welcome to color that counter in if you want. And the last part, this is probably the hardest one. Do any of you remember how to spell the number 1? You can go back and look at our previous pages to see. I'm going to help you on this one though. 1 we saw was an O, N, E. O-N-E. So if you could write that, look, you have the number 1. You have 1 counter, which represents the number 1. And you have the word O-N-E. Let's move down to number 9. This is the number 2. So do you remember how we make a 2? If you're just beginning to practice and you've not written a 2 before, sometimes it might be easier to start with a dot. So if you put a little dot, or Mom and Dad put a dot for you, that's where you're going to put your pencil to start. And you're going to curve up and around, slant down, and then you're going to slide straight back to make the number 2. How many counters would we use to represent the number 2? If I drew this one, that's 1. I think I need to add another one. If I add another one, now we have, let's count. We have 1, 2. We have 2 counters. And the last part is to add the number word 2. If you can, try your best. You can look back at the pages previously. You'll see the number word. But Miss Vogel can help you. T, and then W, and last TW. Did you see it? It's O. Good job, boys and girls. TWO, 2. So today we learned about the numbers 1 and 2. We learned how to count, how to write the number. We're becoming a little familiar with the word, but more importantly, we're knowing that how many counters are attributed to what number, what it represents. So you did a great job. Now I'd like you, in your math workbook, you're going to go to pages 17 and 18, and Mom and Dad are going to help you complete those 2 pages. We did a couple pages real similar to this, but Mom and Dad, make sure you read those directions underneath because sometimes they add a couple tricky things in, and that'll come later on. But if you start the series by reading those at the bottom and becoming familiar, it makes things a lot easier at the end. So I hope you enjoyed your first math lesson. I'll be seeing you every day. Have a great day.